All right, well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for coming and joining to hear more about how we can really leverage stories of impact to catalyze philanthropy. And I'm speaking in my role as Director of Global Philanthropy at Global Citizen. We're a global advocacy organization focused on ending extreme poverty. And I'd love to tell you more about my work in philanthropy at Global Citizen and discuss a few recent examples of leveraging impact to catalyze and accelerate philanthropy. The presentation will cover how my team has worked to expand our role in traditional philanthropy, to really delve into innovative philanthropy and development, and diversify our funding pool. So to quickly set up the call, I think it's helpful for me to tell you a little bit more about my role. I'm on a cross-functional team. We're unique probably in that we're responsible for both bringing funding into Global Citizen as well as funding for our partner organizations. So first I'll talk a bit about funding advocacy and how we frame that up in a way that is really interesting and relevant to donors who especially might only know about or might only have experience with funding direct service. And I'll show a case study that I use to illustrate to donors about how their dollars can go further faster by supporting advocacy. Then I'll recap some of our 2020 major moments that Global Citizen put on in response to COVID-19 that led to $7 billion in funding mobilized towards making sure test treatments and vaccines reach everyone everywhere, and towards response efforts on the ground as well. Finally, I'll talk a little bit about our work to encourage billionaires to give big and give now through our Give While You Live program and a special partnership with Forbes. So I think one of the things I wanted to talk about is, especially when fundraising for advocacy, that's really important to be able to articulate the return on impact that donors can have. In my role at Global Citizen, we like to tell donors that Global Citizen acts as a catalyst that influences the flow of billions of dollars of capital towards the root causes of poverty. And that when a donor supports Global Citizen, their investment is multiplied by the actions of tens of thousands of people and our high-level advocacy interventions to yield the highest return on impact. And to kind of go into a case study on the next slide. So this is a case study that I put together for recent pitches to donors. Obviously, one important aspect of this is knowing the audience and knowing the right audience. That this would obviously be for a high net worth or ultra high net worth donor. But I think it does a really good job of showing how the money coming in the door goes into Global Citizen campaigns, and then the output is a significantly higher funding mobilized policy goals achieved as well. So this is an example of a family office that we worked with. For this campaign, each dollar donated by this philanthropist translated into $69 mobilized and on-the-ground funding. And it went towards things like ensuring girls have access to a complete and full 12 years of safe, free, and quality schooling, securing commitments for the Global Partnership for Education to strengthen education systems in over 80 of the world's poorest countries, and ensure education equity and inclusiveness in 61 developing countries, and launching and achieving new funds for education cannot wait for education and emergencies. Switching gears a little bit pivoting from speaking about funding advocacy, an example of that, into how we also use cross-disciplinary tactics just to support our partner organizations. And part of that is leveraging diverse networks, relationships, and partners to help drive funding at scale. So for a little backstory, for those who don't know, Global Citizen, within a month, less than a month into the pandemic, we hosted it in partnership with the World Health Organization and Lady Gaga, an event called One World Together at Home. It was a global broadcast in 180 countries, and it resulted in $127.9 million in commitments specifically from philanthropists and corporations. And this event actually it won 2 Guinness Book of World Records, among others, but one of them was for most money raised for charity by a remote music festival. And I think this really illustrates an innovative approach for us as well, because we really leaned on using Lady Gaga as not just hosting the event and an amazing spokesperson for it, but she also publicly on national television called up Tim Cook and asked for a commitment from Apple, which he made live on the air on TV. So we just thinking of different ways to leverage our stakeholders and to really help accelerate our fundraising in the most effective way possible. So moving on from One World Together at Home, which was in April, in June, we partnered with the European Union to host Global Goal Unite for Our Future, where we urged governments, philanthropists, corporations to pledge money to ensure that COVID test treatments and vaccines would be available to everyone everywhere. And we helped mobilize $1.5 billion total from governments, corporates, and philanthropists, primarily to ensure that vaccines would be available to all. And I'm happy to report that 6 months following this campaign, 1.1 billion of that 1.5 has been dispersed and is being put to work by our partners around the world, going to things like PPE in over 162 countries, hundreds of millions of medical masks, respirators, face shields, gloves, gowns, goggles, and then also cross-sectionally on helping 6 million children receive urgent education resources. And going back to the storytelling and how I communicate that with donors, it's interesting to note that we work closely with several foundations who finance this campaign. And their return on impact, again, bringing in that return on impact, I think is important in the storytelling. Their return on impact was 430 to 1, or in other words, for every dollar that they put into this campaign to finance Global Citizen's campaign and work on this specifically, the campaign mobilized $430 in cash funding directly to these partners. Okay, moving to kind of the third pillar that I wanted to talk to you all about. In early 2020, and in the pre-COVID days, we launched a campaign called Give While You Live at Davos during the World Economic Forum. And our goal was simple: accelerate giving by the world's wealthiest, inspiring them to give now, give big, give now, and to help solve the world's problems. At the time, the world's wealthiest had collectively amassed a net worth of more than $10 trillion. And that's more than 30 times the $350 billion annual funding gap to achieve the global goals in the world's 59 poorest countries at the time in pre-COVID numbers. But as we all know, that with COVID, countries have continued to be set back. And I know that according to the World Bank estimates, the poverty levels have slipped back to where they were, basically regressed 5 years. And so now we know that these goals are more important than ever. The Give While You Live campaign encourages individuals and foundations to spend down 5% of their net worth annually. So to give now and give big. So to go further faster. One of the ways that we're doing this in a narrative, in the way that we're talking about this, is a partnership that we have built with Forbes, changing the way that philanthropy is measured. So this year marks the launch of our Forbes partnership, which Forbes, as you might know, here in the US puts out a philanthropy ranking, puts out a Forbes 400 ranking of all the top billionaires in the US. And they recently, in 2019, added a philanthropy score, which was wonderful, and we were huge proponents of that. However, we felt like the methodology could be enhanced to focus not just on what billionaires are giving away every year, which can include contributions that are sitting in DACs or sitting in foundations, but to really measure what money are they giving away that is going and touching on the ground organizations, nonprofits, and charities. So we worked with them to develop a new methodology that very, I think, radically changed and had a big splash, which was wonderful in putting pressure on these billionaires to give bigger and give now. We had only 10 billionaires score a 5. So only 10 people have given away more than 20% of their wealth over their lifetime. And it's a number that we're going to continue to work with Forbes on and track. And it's also part of our narrative that we've built around why it's important and shining a light on the importance of these billionaires to step up where they can and to give big and give now. And then it's finally another element that we've built this year, or we built in 2020 to tell this 360 surround sound story of why philanthropy is crucial, now more important than ever, and how we've gone about it, is we also launched for the first time a Global Leader in Philanthropy prize as part of our global event called Global Citizen Prize, where we recognize activists and leaders in their space for the amazing work that they're doing. And Warren Buffett received the 2020 prize. And we're hoping that this continues to elevate the role of philanthropy and the importance of giving. I think very, very top line, that's kind of an overview of my role in philanthropy at Global Citizen. I know that we only have a limited amount of time here, so I went through it pretty quickly, but I would love to open the floor to any questions and help make this an interactive session. Thank you, Camille. Yeah, that's a great question, Camille. How do I see philanthropy changing in 2021 compared to last year? There's been a lot written up about this recently because we did see so many big gifts like we've never seen before in 2020, supporting supporting large NGOs, supporting the response, but also supporting your local homeless shelter, your local food bank. I think all of my colleagues in philanthropy that I've talked to, really, it's not uncommon that they had record fundraising years in 2020, because I think people were living different lifestyles. Like maybe they weren't traveling as much, they weren't going out to dinner, so maybe they had a little extra money if they were a high net worth individual and had the capacity. And then obviously on the other end, there was the greatest need that there, has been in recent history. So I hope that once these people have stepped up, that they will continue, that they'll realize that how transformative these large gifts can be. We'll have to see how sustained this giving change is. Another interesting thing that we've seen is in philanthropy over time, and we continue to see in 2020, is that the major donors have continued to give bigger in increasing their gifts, and the pool generally of minor dollar donors has continued to get smaller and smaller, a smaller piece of the pie. We've seen that across the board, just generally in philanthropy. And that's something that we want to watch out for too, because we don't want it to be a kind of a tyranny of the elites in this space. So that's something that we'll continue to look out for, especially as people continue to step up and make big gifts. Barb, do you also track donating time in addition to donating money? The Global Citizen platform is all about taking action. And so absolutely, you can go on globalcitizen.org, sign up, take action. It's as simple as sending a tweet, signing a petition, making a call to your representative. It's all very easy to do on our platform. And we very much are tracking that. And it's so important to everything we do. That's just not, I didn't touch on that because it's not specifically in the philanthropy space. But it is so important to everything that we do. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.